need to study theoretically as well as practically about these enzymes. So when I talk about enzyme, the first thing might be coming to your mind is salivary amylase. So in the first slide, I have put one small animations where you can see there is one enzyme. That enzyme name is sucrase. You can see water molecule is coming and one sucrose molecule also coming and attaching. And this enzyme hold that substrate, that is sucrose, and convert that into glucose and fructose. So it is holding sucrose with the help of water molecule. It breaks that glycosidic bond. You might have studied, I hope you heard this glycosidic term in your first semester. It breaks that, then what happens? You will get two products, that is one is glucose, another is the fructose, because our body cannot directly absorb the sucrose. So what it does, when we eat the sucrose or when we drink sugarcane juice, when we consume it, this sucrase enzyme will break it and form the glucose. Glucose it's a ready source for our energy. So these enzymes are very, very essential for our body. This is the one example I'm giving. It's very essential. It is there in your mouth. It is there in your stomach. It is there in your intestine. Everywhere these enzymes are there. It is playing a vital role in your digestion. One thing. One is digestion. It plays a very important role. And second thing is what you call metabolism. Vital metabolism. Any metabolism you take, it may be a carbohydrate metabolism, or it may be a protein metabolism, or it may be nucleic acid metabolism. Anywhere these enzymes are playing significant role. Now you might be thinking, what are these enzymes? These enzymes are, really speaking, they are biocatalysts. They are similarly, you might have heard the term catalyst in chemistry. The same thing here, that is bio, because it is a biological origin. These enzymes, you can find it in plants, you can find it in bacteria, you can find it in fungus, you can find it in virus, you can find it in human beings too. And these enzymes are useful for us, not only like just to study theoretically or something, but industrially there is a lots of applications. Always I used to tell, today we are eating biscuits, or else legally biscuit is available in the market, or cookies are available in the market only because of one enzyme, what we call asparginase. If asparginase were not discovered in the 90s, there would have been no biscuits or cookies in the market. Because when you heat glucose too much, this glucose is converted to very toxic substances. One of the substances of it. So when it converts, it is a toxic. So if you use the asparginase enzyme, it reduces the toxic product conversion from glucose, or production of toxic products from glucose. So many products are there. Like that, there are enzymes in dairy industries. Mainly, you might have heard about what you call cheese. Cheese is produced from an enzyme called rennet. If no rennet, no cheese. The cheese is the biggest industry in the globe, if you see. And when we talk about these enzymes, these enzymes are proteins, realistically factors. That's very important. If they are protein, they can be controlled by many factors. Those factors play a very significant role in controlling this enzyme activity. So these factors can directly or indirectly play a role in maintaining the enzyme optimum activity. That means a complete ultimate activity. But there is a one saying, a proverb we commonly say in biochemistry, a proverb: all enzymes are proteins, but all proteins are not enzymes. Whatever protein you see in your body, they are not enzymes, but all enzymes are protein. But does not hold good in the present scenario, because there are enzymes which are made up of nucleic acid, that is RNA-based enzymes are also there. So that means earlier universal saying, we used to mention that enzymes are made up of only protein, but it is not true in the present scenario. There are RNA-based enzymes too, but 99% of enzymes are protein-based. If enzymes are made up of protein, that means they are made up of amino acids. Amino acid has got its own characteristic. That means some are hydrophobic, some can be controlled by a pH. There are some can be controlled by a temperature. And the same thing, if you boil egg, it will become an omelette. That means it will coagulate. Same thing, if you increase the temperature, enzyme will die. Same thing is happening. That is why when we get a fever, or when we fought with a fever, we cannot digest food. We vomit it, right? We puke it. It's mainly because our enzymes are inactive. When the temperature is increased from 37 degree to around 38 degree, that enzymes may not function in a proper way. So we cannot digest it. So body will put it out. So in any sense you take, maybe industry, or maybe in the general applications, or maybe in the laboratory, or maybe in our body, that's got immense importance. So in this scenario, we will study little more about these enzymes and how these enzymes are controlled by some factors. There are many factors. In your syllabus, we are going to study only 4 factors, 4 important factors which control this enzyme activity. We are leaving some other factors like a metal, their substrate, product concentration. There are 2 more factors like metals and product concentration that we'll study under some other subheadings in the later part of your class. And if you are finding any difficulties to hear my class or maybe to see my slides, no problem. I'll record this entire thing and I'll put it in the YouTube, and a link will be given in the LMS portal from where you can see my class. And if class reopens in maybe in the next coming month, then we can revise entire syllabus again. So we'll go a little more further about these enzymes. Enzymes are biocatalysts. You can see in this slide, they are biocatalysts. That means they can hold something and it can convert into product. That means it can hold a substrate and break that substrate and convert into product. Each cycle, if you see this conversion cycle from substrate to product, enzymes are reused. We are not going to lose the enzyme. Enzyme is reused. So we are not going to lose enzyme. So we will get a product. But we will lose the enzyme once its half-life is over. You just imagine salivary amylase, which is produced in your saliva, can live up to maximum recorded cases up to 10 hours. Not more than that. 10 hours, within 10 hours, this will get degraded because the protein will be sent to, degradation. The amino acids are produced, those amino acids are recycled and reused. But till the half-life, reaching the half-life, enzymes can be reused. The same enzyme can be reused and perform many reactions. You can see in this picture, there are substrate in dark color, in green color, there are enzyme which is holding. There is one site where exactly enzyme is binding. So that site we call active site. That is the region or the place where the reaction is happening. That may be rich in some of the amino acid which can perform this function. So enzymes are biocatalysts. It can convert substrate into product, and we are not losing enzyme in any cycle of reaction. We are reusing. So how this is converting enzyme, converting substrate into product? Enzyme hold the substrate and it forms a temporarily enzyme substrate complex, what you can see in the reaction, enzyme substrate complex. From there, it can form enzyme plus a product. That's very important. It can form enzyme plus product. Once it is formed enzyme plus product, those enzymes are recycled and it can perform the next reactions. So now the important thing is there are factors which control. We'll see what are the factors. So there are many factors. We are going to study, luckily we are going to study only 4 factors. So one is enzyme concentration. Second factor is substrate concentration. Third factor is pH. And the fourth factor is temperature. We are going to study in detail about these 4 factors, how they are going to control enzyme catalyzed reaction in either in an in vivo condition or maybe in the in vitro condition. In vivo condition means it is inside a human body or maybe inside the bacterial cell or viral cell or maybe the enzyme cell, a fungal cell or maybe inside the plant cell. But in vitro means maybe in the laboratory condition what you are doing, maybe in the test tube it is going to control. We will concentrate on the first factor, enzyme. How enzyme controls enzyme catalyzed reactions. So in enzyme catalyzed reaction, enzymes are the important part of the reaction. So you just imagine there are 10 substrate and 10 enzymes. Only 10 substrate and 10 enzymes. So what happens? 10 substrate will be converted into 10 products. But if you add 15, that means in 1 minute, you just imagine 10 substrates are converted into 10 products in 1 minute. But if you are adding 20 enzymes, what happens? This 10 substrate will be converted into 10 products in 30 seconds. If you add 30 enzymes, then it will again decreases. That means if you add more enzyme, it converts substrate into product faster. That means as you add enzyme, it increases the rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction. That means it speed up the enzyme catalyzed reaction. How much you add, that much it increases the enzyme catalyzed reaction. That means enzyme will hold important part of enzyme catalyzed reaction, where increasing enzyme concentration will directly increases the enzyme catalyzed speed of enzyme catalyzed reaction. That means the concentration of enzyme and the speed of enzyme catalyzed reactions are directly proportional. They are not against each other, they are directly proportional to each other. In this graph, I'll explain the two more thing. You can see there is a one graph which shows in one y-axis, I mentioned enzyme velocity. I hope you can see this properly, enzyme velocity. And there is another x-axis, you can see enzyme concentration. What I'm doing is I'm keep on adding enzyme to this reaction setup. For example, I'm adding first enzyme, it increases the reaction. Again, I'm adding enzyme, it is increasing. Again, I'm adding enzyme, it is increasing. Again, I'm adding enzyme, it is increasing. So it increases in a linear scale. That means as you increase the enzyme concentration, it increases the speed of enzyme catalyzed reaction. So you will get a straight line in case of effect of enzyme concentration on enzyme catalyzed reaction. If you plot enzyme velocity or the reaction rate versus enzyme concentration, you can see a straight line. You will get a perfect straight line. Straight line means y is equal to mx plus c. There will be a slope, there will be an intercept. So enzyme catalyzed reaction, the effect of enzyme is it produces a straight line. As you increase the enzyme concentration, it increases the speed of enzyme catalyzed reactions. So next factor, we'll go to the next factor. So that is a substrate concentration. So how this first thing we studied about how the enzyme concentration will going to affect the enzyme catalyzed reaction. But the second thing is how the substrate concentration will go into effect. So what happens in case of, you just imagine, again I'm giving the same example, there are 10 enzymes and you are adding 10 substrate. So what happens? 10 product will form in a particular time. But there are only 10 enzymes. Enzymes are fixed now. Only variation can happen in substrate. You just imagine there are 10 enzymes. You are adding 10 substrates. So 10 products are formed. You are keep on adding substrate. You are adding 20 substrate, 30 substrate. So what happens? The rate of a reaction initially increases like this. It increases. Slowly it increases and increases as you add the substrate. So, but once it is reached a particular stage, then it follows a same pattern. There won't be any slight increase in the rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction. Initially, it increases. When you add more substrate to the fixed amount of enzyme, initially it increases. But once it is reached a specific stage, then it maintains a same pattern. So, if you plot the speed of a reaction, or V means a velocity of a reaction, enzyme catalyzed reaction, versus S means a substrate concentration. Substrate concentration. Same thing there. In the first reaction, we plotted rate versus enzyme concentration. In the second reaction, we are plotting the velocity of a reaction versus substrate. If you plot, you will not get a straight line. I hope by looking at this graph only, you can say what kind of graph is this? Is rectangular hyperbolic curve. This is a rectangular hyperbolic curve. How you are getting this rectangular hyperbolic curve? You are taking 10 enzyme, you are adding the substrate. Initially, it increases the reaction. Second, it increases, then it forms a slow pattern. So what you will get a rectangular hyperbolic curve than a straight line. When you are speaking about rectangular hyperbolic curve, there is an initial maximum velocity. That means it reaches a maximum velocity at the initial stage. 1 second, you just imagine a per unit time, there are 10 enzymes, you are adding a 10 substrate, all 10 substrates are bound to enzymes, so it reaches a maximum velocity. Then it forms a linear pattern. Sorry, there is a steady pattern it forms, not the linear pattern, a steady pattern. Initially it increases, but then it forms a steady pattern. So in the case of enzyme concentration, in the first step, first graph, we got a straight line, but in case of a second, we are getting a rectangular hyperbolic curve. I hope you understood. We are getting a rectangular hyperbolic curve when we plot rate of a reaction versus substrate concentration. So first factor we studied, that is enzyme concentration. which increases directly. As you add the enzyme concentration, it increases the reaction. Second, we studied substrate concentration. As you increase the substrate concentration, initially it increases, then it forms a steady pattern. So you will get a rectangular hyperbolic curve. Let us go to the third factor. Third factors are also very, very important. What are these third factors? That is pH. I need to talk a little bit about pH. pH means a concentration of hydrogen ion. As you all know, pH means it is the concentration of hydrogen ion. That is very important. Concentration of hydrogen ions are very important, which maintains the pH of human body. So in our body, we can see all kind of pH. We can see acidic pH, we can see basic pH, we can see a neutral pH. So pH scale varies from 1 to 14. The pH scale, when we talk about pH, the hydrogen ion concentration, it varies from 1 to 14. There is a 1 at one end and there is a 14 scale at another end. So there is a 7 which is called neutral. So 1 to 7, 7 to 14. So 7 is neutral. From 7 to 14 we call basic or alkaline. And then from 7 to 1 or 1 to 7 to 1 in downward direction, we call that acidic. So 6 is slightly acidic, 5 is acidic, then very acidic, and finally completely acidic. Here also like that, 9 is basic, 10 is basic, 11 is fully basic, 14 is completely basic. So here I have given some example. So normal water what we drink, that is pH almost 7. But if you see kidney or urine, that is slightly acidic. If you go to tomato juice or maybe what you call lemon juice, that is acidic. Then you go to your gastric juice or maybe sulfuric acid or maybe acetic acid or any acid that is completely acidic. So it is an example of water, urine, then food juices, then gastric. But if you see what you call pH of basic, that is normal household what you call bleach, that is high pH. Any alkaline solutions, maybe potassium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, all those things. And you have a Pepsi or Coca-Cola. I hope you have a carbonated drink called Pepsi or Coca-Cola. You love the product. What is the pH of that? You can write it later in the class. That means how this pH is affected not only by the carbonation or carbon dioxide addition, but also it is affected by what you call phosphoric acid, what they add in Pepsi. So Pepsi and all is an acidic drink. They are not basic drink, they are all acidic drinks. So what is the effect of this pH on enzyme catalyzed reaction? That's very important for us. First factor, enzyme we studied. Second factor, we studied concentration of substrate. Third one is a pH. So pH affects enzyme. Why? Because enzymes are protein, mainly they are protein, almost they are protein I can say, and they are made up of amino acids. Amino acids are linked together by peptide bond. So what happens when amino acids are there, their charge, their ionic charge is based on the pH. If a pH decreases, it forms one charge. If pH increases, it forms another charge. So charge is also very important. So what happens if you plot or if you study, you take any example setup where you are taking a 10 substrate and enzyme, then you are increasing the pH. Slowly what you are doing is you are increasing a pH. As you increase the pH, the enzyme catalyzed reaction will increases. It depends on enzyme. It increases slowly. The rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction increases from 2 to 4, 4 to 6. The rate of the reaction increases and it reaches a maximum. Then what happens? Then it decreases like this. Rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction decreases. So if you plot pH versus rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction, you will get a bell-shaped curve. You will get a bell-shaped curve. The acidic, the rate of reaction increases, but it reaches a maximum at neutral pH and then it decreases. So you'll get a bell-shaped curve. Initial curve in case of enzyme concentration was straight line. Second, in substrate concentration, it was a rectangular hyperbolic curve. And third thing, that is what you call a bell-shaped curve. Why this bell-shaped curve? What is the importance of this bell-shaped curve? That means there is an optimum pH. I mentioned in the picture there is an optimum pH. Where this optimum pH you can see here as you increase this picture, you can see here optimum pH. Maximum activity you will get there. That is For most of the enzyme, what you see in our body, that is 6 to 8 is the normal optimum pH, 6 to 8. But there are extreme enzymes. There are extremely extreme enzymes are there which are functions in a different pH. That means there are enzymes which are highly active at acidic pH. There are enzymes which are highly active at basic pH. So as you increase the pH, for most of the enzyme it decreases and decreases and finally reaches a zero rate for enzyme. So if you plot rate of enzyme catalysis reaction versus pH, you will get a bell-shaped curve with optimum pH. We'll go a little more further. I've given one example. If enzyme is pepsin, what you have in your stomach, which can kill, which can break all proteinaceous stuff what we eat, pepsin, its optimum pH is 1 to 2. The 1 to 2 pH is optimum pH. Optimum pH is the pH at which maximum activities are observed. What is optimum pH? Optimum pH is the pH at which the maximum activity, enzyme activity is observed. That means the maximum substrate can be converted into product at optimum pH. Then there are enzymes called acid phosphatase. Their optimum pH is 4 to 5. There are another enzyme, alkaline phosphatase. That's very important, alkaline phosphatase. You can see alkaline phosphatase maximum activity or else what we call its optimum activity, that is 10 to 11, the extreme alkaline. We can't imagine. You just imagine you take 10% or 40, 50% or 40% of sodium hydroxide, then dip your finger and see what is the condition. You feel completely alkaline or slimy or else little porous. It's because high pH. But in nature you can see there are enzymes which are active at high pH. So there are enzymes active at low pH. There are enzymes active at mild or neutral pH. There are enzymes active at alkaline pH. So, but still, each enzyme got its own optimum pH. Optimum pH is the pH at which the maximum enzyme activity can be observed. So, in any cases, in case of a graph, if you observed in case of pH, initially it increases as you increase the enzyme activity. It reaches optimum, then it slowly decreases, and decreases. So, optimum pH is the pH at which the maximum enzyme activities are observed. So, we'll go to the last. So, here bell-shaped curve is observed. In the first case, a straight line. In the second case, we observed what you call rectangular hyperbolic curve. And in the third stage, we are observing, or the pH, we are observing a bell-shaped curve with optimum pH. Now, the last factor we have, the fourth factor, that is temperature. What is temperature? Temperature is a heat, or else it is a specific heat we measure at particular condition, right? That's what you call the temperature. So what is this? What is the temperature? What is the importance of temperature? Why temperature is so important for enzyme activity? You just measure your body temperature. Your body temperature is 37 degrees. That means all your enzymes are manufactured or designed to work at 37 degrees. That means your enzyme will work at maximum speed, at maximum rate at 37 degrees. That means at 37 degrees, your body enzyme shows a maximum activity. That means the maximum substrate will be converted into a product. Maximum substrate will be converted into product when there was when the temperature is 37 degrees. But why this temperature is affecting enzymes? Because enzymes are protein. In the first slide itself, I told you take egg and boil egg, the egg will get coagulated. That means it loses its three-dimensional structure, or else it loses its native structure. Once the protein is lost its native structure, it cannot hold any substrate. No more substrate can be added or bound by these enzymes because it loses its native structure or 3D structure in a space or in our body. That's why it is very important to maintain a specific temperature. So, but there are extreme. I'll talk about that later in this slide. Next slide, I'll talk about extreme enzymes. That's very important for us in the present scenario. So, if you increase, see, there are 10 enzymes. They are adding 10 substrate. You are increasing rate of the enzyme catalysis. rate. What is happening? We'll see. It increases at the initial stage. It increases as you increase the enzyme catalyzed reaction temperature. The rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction increases, and then decreases, and finally it decreases. What does it mean? That means the most of the enzymes are highly active at 35 to 40 degrees. That means if you see the temperature scale, if you plot a graph of enzyme activity versus temperature, you can see the maximum activity of most of the available enzyme at 37 or maybe 35 to 40 degrees, not more than that. Then you can see after 40 degree enzyme activities are decreasing. That means if you plot enzyme activity versus temperature, you will again observe a bell-shaped curve. So you will get bell-shaped curve in pH, you will get a bell-shaped curve in case of temperature too. So why this bell-shaped curve? Because it's initially increasing, and increasing. It is reaching optimum temperature. Optimum temperature is the temperature at which the maximum substrate can be converted into product by a specific enzyme. Then it decreases, and finally the enzyme activity will become zero. There won't be any enzyme activity. It reaches initial stage. Why this is happening to enzyme? So I told, when you increase temperature more than 40 degree, so it loses its structure. There are enzymes which are active till 70 degree. There are enzymes which are active till 100 degree. That means when you heat enzyme will get denatured. Denatured means it loses its property, or else it loses its enzymatic property, because enzymes are made up of proteins are made up of amino acids are completely controlled by the factors like temperature, pH. So temperature is also a very important factor. But there are enzymes which are even active at very low temperature. There are enzymes which are active at high temperature. You might have heard about tundra or Siberia or else Alaska. If you go and see that Alaska or tundra, there the problem is temperature is sub-zero, or maybe -20, -10, or maybe 0. But there are bacteria which live there. It's called psychrophytes. Psychro means the bacteria which grow in a very low temperature, or else we call them as a cold temperature adapted bacteria. Those bacteria can perform in the temperature. They are living there because their enzymes are active at very low temperature. That's very, very strange, and that's what we call the evolution is so important in deciding the future, the sustainable growth of each individual organism on this planet Earth. So that's very important. Evolution is playing very, very significant role. Psychrophytes are evolved there in that very low temperature, so their enzymes are also adapted to very low temperature. But you put yourself into very low temperature, we will die, because that's why we put a full suit for when we go to low temperature. Right? We wear all jackets and other things to maintain our body temperature. We drink very hot, maybe hot water or maybe coffee to maintain our body temperature. Or some may take drinks also, alcoholic drinks to maintain the body temperature, because otherwise your enzymes will be inactive. But majority of enzymes are highly active at 35 to 40 degrees. But there are extreme enzymes. I want to talk about that enzymes today. See, you can see two pictures here. One picture is from Australian sulfur spring. Sulfur spring means if you observe that spring, the sulfur smokes will be coming and the water will be boiling there. That is called sulfur springs. That is natural phenomenon because of earth crust. Below the earth crust, there is a molten this one is there, no? Molten materials are there, which is pumping out in a large quantity of sulfur. That you can see even in case of magma, what we call magma. No? Yes, there are bacteria which grow there. This bacteria name is Thermus aquaticus. So there is a person called Brock who discovered this bacteria first from this sulfur spring. And you might be thinking, what is the connection between this bacteria and its enzymes and the present scenario? So today, if you open what you call television, you can see testing about corona testing, and the chief ministers are talking about RT-PCR is done to confirm the corona cases, the coronaviruses, and all those things. There is one technique called as PCR, polymerase chain reaction. So this polymerase chain reaction is invented by a person called as Kary Mullis, who got a Nobel Prize in 1990s. I mean, he invented in 1991, I think. Later he got a Nobel Prize in the late 90s. He got a Nobel Prize for a simple instrument. He invented a small instrument that is called thermocycler. So when he was using a DNA molecule to identify any substances or maybe virus or fungus, you need to split the DNA. DNA are double stranded. You need to split them into a single strand. And when you split this single double strand DNA into single strand, you need to increase the temperature. When you increase the temperature, you can't add our body enzymes or normal bacterial enzymes. Those enzymes will die there because temperature will go up to 90 degrees. So when he was struggling a lot with this group, discovered a new bacteria, Thermocyclotis. From there, they isolated a enzyme called as Taq polymerase. TAQ polymerase. TAQ polymerase is a Taq polymerase enzyme, which will act at 100 degree also. So that enzyme is an example of the extreme temperature enzyme, that is Taq polymerase. That enzyme is isolated from sulfur string. It works at very, very high temperature. So what happens? Because of this, today we could use the PCR, polymerase chain reaction, to identify fungus or maybe bacteria or else a virus to confirm the cases, because you are specifically amplifying the DNA and you are taking the genetic material. You are specifically or precisely saying that this is coronavirus. So PCR has got application, but in 1990s, the group discovered this bacteria. From this bacteria, Taq polymerase isolated. Those Taq polymerase used by the Kary-Mullis to identify the technology called PCR, polymerase chain. Now, n number of modifications they have done in the PCR, and now presently we call RT-PCR, that is real-time reverse transcriptase PCR, where DNAs are made from RNA, and those DNAs are made from RNA. Those DNAs are targeted to identify the viruses. So there is a lots of applications for this enzymes. So there are enzymes which, that is Taq polymerase. You please remember this enzyme. TAQ, T capital small a Q polymerase. Polymerase means which polymerize the reactions, which can form the polymer. So in the entire class, we studied about what are enzymes, what are the factors. The first factor is enzyme concentration. If you plot a rate of enzyme versus enzyme concentration, you get a straight line. Second factor, we studied substrate concentration. If you plot a rate of an enzyme catalyzed reaction versus substance concentration, you will get a rectangular hyperbolic curve. But there is another factor, what you call the third one, that's a pH. pH is very important. pH scale vary from 1 to 14. And in that pH scale, if you plot enzyme catalyzed reaction versus pH, it increases initially, it reaches optimum pH, then it decreases. That means each enzyme has got its own optimum pH. Optimum pH means it is the pH at which the maximum activities are observed. So optimum pH are very essential. So most of the enzyme optimum pH is 6 to 8. There are enzymes which is active at 10 pH, that is alkaline phosphate. There are enzymes which are active at low pH, pepsin. And the last factor is temperature. That's a very, very important factor because it plays a very significant role in deciding the denaturation of protein, because most of the enzymes are food. Here also same thing. You will get a bell-shaped curve if you plot the rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction versus temperature. Initially it increases, it reaches optimum temperature, so you will get a bell-shaped curve, because after optimum temperature, the enzyme will get denatured. So denatured enzyme will lose its tertiary structure. Once the tertiary structure is lost, it cannot hold the end substrate and it cannot form the product. So temperature, you will get a bell-shaped curve. pH, you will get a bell-shaped curve. Bell in the sense, I hope you remember what is bell. So bell-shaped curve. And in case of substrate, you will get a rectangular hyperbolic curve. And in case of enzyme, we will get a straight line. So four factors which play a very significant role in getting optimum activity. Optimum activity means the maximum substrate conversion into product per enzyme per unit time. So that's very important. So there are other factors too which are not there in the syllabus. There is one is a metal ion which play very important role. There is a product too. I'll speak 2 words about the product. If too much product build up in the body, this product itself will reduce the enzyme activity. That means too much substrate cannot into product means that lots of product will build up in the body. Those products will inhibit the enzyme activity. That is the one thing. Last thing is a metal enzyme. Metal ions play a very significant role in the enzyme activity. There are enzymes called as metalloenzymes, and there are enzymes called as metal activated enzymes. So metal also significantly play very important role in maintaining the rate of enzyme catalyzed reaction. Thank you, students. This is the today's class. I'm stopping my presentation